So today we're going to talk about how to clean a semi-automatic handgun. We're not going to talk about revolvers because they're fairly easy to figure out if you just use the same concepts that you're using with a semi-automatic. So what we're going to talk about first is how to take apart, field stripping we call it, take apart, disassemble a Glock style pistol, and then what we're after, how we're trying to accomplish this. So I've also got a 1911 style pistol here. This is another one that you may have as a semi-automatic that you need to take apart and clean. So we'll talk about how to do this. Now bear in mind, just like with Glocks, there's different ways to do it. If you have a Glock style pistol with 1911s, there are different ways to field strip or disassemble it. So you're going to need to follow your owner's manual on whichever type you have. Okay, so as we mentioned, we're going to start with a Glock type pistol. Now, once again, remember that Glock type pistols can vary in how they're disassembled or field stripped, so consult your owner's manual. But we're going to show you one of the more common ways, the one that's done with Glocks, and therefore it's done with a lot of other types of pistols. It'll help you kind of get the feel of what you're supposed to do, the general idea of it. But again, consult your owner's manual for details on how to do this. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this Glock pistol apart. We're going to field strip it. Again, I've already gone through the 6 safe unloading steps for this, prepping it for this video. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to close that slide up on here. Now it's very important that you've gone through those 6 safety steps, because when you're going to unload when you're going to disassemble the Glock type pistol, you have to press the trigger to get it disassembled. So very important that we do the 6 safe steps of unloading before we start to clean this firearm. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to press the trigger. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to get this slide back just a little bit. If you put it too far back, you reset the trigger, defeats the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish. Now on the next step, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead and show you what we're going to be doing so it's not confusing when we get there. You'll see these 2 little notches, these little levers, tiny levers on either side. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a thumb and a finger, one on either side, and simultaneously pulling down on those 2 levers together. So they'll both be getting pulled down on at the same time. Okay, now before we get to that step, what we have to do again is get this slide locked or slid open just a hair. And the reason why I jumped ahead is because it's very hard to keep it in this position. So the way I like to do it is I like to take my thumb up into this back strap area, and I like to pull the slide back just a hair like so with my hands on the slide holding it there. Now again, I've got those 2 little areas, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press down here, and then I'm simply going to let that slide move forward. You'll notice the slide just comes right forward as I held those 2 little buttons down. Now once I've got the slide off, I've got my frame here. You'll notice I've got my slide spring in here. Now what I'm going to do is remember that this is under pressure, so I'm going to start from the back end, and I'm going to push forward just a little bit and then easily bring it up. There. And I've brought my slide spring out. Now once I've got my slide spring out, I'm going to come from the bottom side, I'm going to push up, and it's going to come at kind of an angle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop my barrel all the way out. I've now disassembled my Glock as far as I need to take it apart for cleaning. So let's begin the cleaning process. How do we clean our firearm? Well, first off, let's think about protective equipment that we probably want to use. We're using chemicals and stuff, so we don't want to get stuff in our eyes. And also, we're dealing with a lot of lead on here. So we don't want to let this stuff absorb into our skin. So it's very important that we do 2 things. We have gloves, some type of plastic nitrile gloves or something, and then we have some kind of eye protection. Now you can use just plain old eye protection, or if you're having a little problem seeing, you can use the kind like this that has a little light down on the side. You activate the little switch and on comes a light. These can be very helpful if you're working with intricate pieces, especially if you're working like with an AR or something. Helps you just to get in there and really see what's going on. Now I'm not going to use those today. I don't need those for the Glock. It's very simple. But I am going to keep my eye protection on. I'm now going to go ahead and make sure that I've got my gloves on, because again, I don't want to get all that lead all over my hands. It's a very messy job when you're cleaning a firearm. So once I've got my gloves on, the next thing I want to think about is the type of cleaning equipment I'm going to use. Well, for me, I really like these all-in-one kits. They work out nicely. You can get them in several different brands, but I really like these. They come with just about everything you need. They come with brushes, barrel brushes. They come with a 3-in-1 cleaner and some patches, and they even come with a nice little silicone cloth to make it look pretty at the end. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get started cleaning this. Now, what I like to do when I'm doing it is I like to start off by setting my slide up on its end like this. And then what I do is I take a little bit of my 3-in-1 here, and I like to put it right on the tips of where the rail is going to touch the frame of the firearm. You'll notice I'm using right here, there's a little channel that runs all the way down. A little channel that runs all the way down on either side. I like to just put, about 2, maybe 3 drops, whatever, just a little bit on either side. And then I tilt it up and I let that oil lubricant run down there while I'm doing the rest of my cleaning. It makes it very simple in the end. So now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I get this points of contact that my metal has on other metal with my firearm. So this is one of the keys to what we're doing and trying to accomplish when we clean. We want to make sure that the areas that are metal, that touch on metal in the operation of the firearm, have some lubrication on them and they aren't gunked up with junk. So we're cleaning off the junk and we're keeping them lubricated. So what I'm going to do to accomplish that is I'm going to start off with a basic brush here. I got a brush that has a bigger brush, smaller brush. And then what I like to do is I like to put just a couple drops, and I usually start off with a big brush, just a couple drops of lubricant on here. Set amount, just a little bit. And I like to get in there and I like to start to scrub. And kind of scrub those areas really good. And I get a little bit of that on there. And once I've got it spread around, I go to the little brush. And I start to really get in there good and clean that up. I like to get underneath. I'm going to get both sides here really good, clean that up. And then I'm going to get right on this top metal area here, I'm going to get down into the area where the slide spring sits and rests and just kind of clean up any gunk or residue that might be in there. I even like to get down into my magazine well, just give it a little quick brush in there, nothing too significant. I just want to get the excess gunk off that's in there. I mean, I know I'm going to get gunk when I fire my firearm, right? But I like to keep it kind of cleaned up like that. Now that I've got all that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little cleaning patch. These patches are great. You're going to come in with it and you're going to just kind of get all of the excess oil cleaner off of there. So it'll maintain a nice little lubrication on there, but it'll get some of the excess off and some of that dirt. As you can see, it's pretty nasty. And I clean my firearms fairly regularly too, but they still get dirty. So anyway, you're going to get all that gunk out of there. And we got all this. All right, looks pretty good. All right, that's about all we really need to do on here. You can give it a little pass inside that magazine well if you want to kind of get the excess off. And then you can just set that frame aside. You can be done with that. Now for the spring, some people like to really get in and clean these up. And I've never had to clean a spring yet. They don't really need it, but if you want to get in and give it just a little rub down, no problem. But they don't really need a thorough cleaning. These things are built to last. So you can set your spring aside. Now the barrel, this is probably one of the most important parts. Again, we want to make sure that our points of contact, metal on metal, are nice and clean and lubricated, but we also want to make sure that the area that the bullet is traveling down is nice and clean and lubricated. So the way we're going to accomplish this is we're going to take out this little rod here that we have. And this little rod comes with, I have a 40 caliber brush here designed to go with my 40 caliber firearm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to screw in this little cleaning brush, and I'm now going to kind of put it over top of a little cleaning pad, and I'm going to just give it a couple drops. Doesn't really matter how many, just a few drops on there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come from behind. I'm going to come from the chamber area, and I'm going to push towards the muzzle, trying to push all the gunk out. The reason for that is simple. We're just trying to go with the flow of where you typically find the junk at, right? And the way it normally moves. So I'm going to come from the barrel area. We're going to push it all out. There we go. Now, some people go back and forth with it, back and forth. I prefer to keep everything moving in the same direction. not telling you how you should do it, just my preference, so it's the way I'm going to do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it about 2 to 3 passes here. I'm just going to give it 2 for now to demonstrate what we're doing. But I might give it another pass or 2 even after this if I was to really clean it. So now I've got all that stuff cleaned out in there. You can kind of see what's going on with it. I've cleaned that all out. I now want to come back in with my brush. I'm going to get just a little bit more lubricant on it. And I'm going to brush right around here on the back end. And I'm going to get all this gunk off. And again, I'll move to that little tiny brush. And I get all the gunk off that I can and get all in there, all around. I want all this metal cleaned off as good as I can. Now what I need to do, I've cleaned that all up. I can either get a clean patch, or for now, just for quickness, I'm just going to use this patch. I'm going to get some of that gunk and that excess oil off there on the edge. Got that all done. And then I kind of like to wipe the outside of that barrel down really good. Just make it pretty and shiny. Alright, got it all cleaned up. Now that I got it all cleaned up there, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish cleaning my barrel. Now, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can either take the little piece that will usually come with a kit like this and a cleaning patch, and what you can do is you can slide this in so that you've got kind of putting that into the eye, the little eyelet there, slide it through like so, and then put a couple drops of lubricant on. You can slide this onto the end of the rod, and then what you can do is you can kind of go through and pass through that a few times, just like you did with the barrel brush. Now, I'm going to do 2 passes on this again. I would normally do several passes, probably 4 or 5 passes with this, just to make sure that I got it really good. No set number again, but just a few of them. Now, once I've done that, I want to come back in with a brand new clean patch. I don't want to put any lubricant on it this time. I just want to come in with a clean patch, and then I want to run it down inside of there, let it do its thing. And I'm going to do this no set amount of times. I'm going to do it until no other junk appears to be coming off of there. So again, I'm going to do 2 passes just to kind of give you the idea. I'm going all the way through there. And once I got that done, I could set my barrel aside. Now, the alternative to cleaning this barrel once you've used the barrel brush already, the alternative is to use a couple different types of cleaning items. You can use this little item called a jag. You have to get this in the right caliber for your firearm, and this is universal. You can use it for just about any firearm, but these jags have to be set for the caliber of your firearm. Now, how they work is you take this little cleaning patch, a fresh one, and you're going to put it on there. You'll put it right about in the center. You punch this jag through it. Let's give it a little pressure. There we go. And you'll see my jag is now sticking through. Now what I do is I screw that on the end of my barrel or my rod here. Once I got it on there, I would put the lubrication on here, a couple drops of lubrication, cleaning material, and I would pass this through my barrel. Now, as you can see, since this is designed for your barrel caliber, it gets a much better clean in there. That's why this is a really neat tool. So again, you would do that a couple times, a few passes there with the lubricant, then you would take a clean one with no lubricant on it, screw it into, oops, drop my little clean patch there. Okay, I'm going to put my clean patch right on there again, and I'm going to come again and just push it all the way through. And again, I would push this through until I wasn't getting anything else off of there. You see, that looks pretty clean right now. So, got that all done. That's just an alternative way that you can clean it. A final one that you can do is the same exact principle, is just to come in with what they call a squeegee, a barrel squeegee. That just screws right into the end of your barrel, and you can use that to kind of get in there and squeegee out the excess stuff as well. So just another trick you can use. There's a lot of different cleaning mechanisms out there. Again, for myself, I prefer to go barrel brush and then follow it up with a jag. I find that gives a really nice clean. Now, once I've finished cleaning my barrel, I can set my rod and my jags and my brushes aside. I've got my barrel set over here. Get all this excess stuff out of the way. Okay, now I need to give attention to my slide. And as you can see, my lubrication has made its way all the way down the insides of those railings there. So it's worked out really good. Now I just bring my brush in. I like to bring that small brush and just give a little brushing all the way down those railings, both sides. There we go. Get that nice and clean. And then I just want to clean up these excess areas here. Just get any gunk, dirt that might be on there. Kind of come down in here, get a good brush. You can come inside through the barrel opening if you want. Just get a nice brush and clean it all up. Now you can clean anywhere on here. What you want to be kind of cautious of is right back in here is your firing pin. And so you just want to be cautious that you don't get too much stuff in there, because that can cause your firing pin to be lubricated, which you don't really want. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get any on there. If you get a little on there, no big deal, but you don't want to get a bunch of excess lubrication down into your firing pin area. So once you've got it all cleaned up, you're going to take yourself a clean patch here, and you're just going to wipe over and get this excess stuff off of here. And we'll get all the excess off all those areas where it's going to have points of contact. And then you can even get down into that barrel opening. That's usually a very filthy area. Get it all cleaned up. You can even give it a rub down on the outside if you want. Make it all pretty. Again, it's your baby, right? You want to make it pretty. So we've got it all prettied up now. Now what we can do is we can work on putting our firearm back together. So we're going to do this in just the reverse steps of how we took it apart. To start off, we're going to take our barrel, and remember the flat side is going to be the side that comes up top here. So you're going to take your barrel, you're going to put it in a slight angle, not a heavy one, just a slight angle until you get it forward a little bit, and then you're going to pull it back into place. Once you have it in place, you're going to take your little slide spring, and with the smaller side and the bigger side, what you want to do is put the smaller side into this little opening. And you want to make sure that you get it seated into the little half moon opening down here. You see there's two openings. There's a flat opening, and then down below it a half moon opening. So what we want to do is insert it in there and push it down into the half moon opening. Now once we've got that, what we're going to do is simply take our slide, we're going to line it up. Oops, I'm going to just line it up so that it slides right onto the frame there. And then we're going to rack the slide. You have now cleaned your Glock style semi-automatic pistol. Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about how to take apart field strip or disassemble the 1911. Again, this is a Colt Commander style 1911. So we're going to talk about how to disassemble this and reassemble it for cleaning. So to start off, what you want to do is you want to make sure that your safety is on. You've got your hammer cocked back, and again, make sure you've done the 6 proper steps of unloading. I just finished doing this to prep it for this video. So you got your hammer back, safety on. Now what you're going to do is you are going to simply come to the top of it, up by the muzzle, and you'll see there's a little plug up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to press on this plug. You can use a special tool that is sometimes created for these, or you can just use your fingers or other little manipulated tool that you have. All you need to do is press this little plug down, and at the same time you're going to rotate this barrel bushing clockwise. You're going to rotate it to about an 8 or 9 o'clock position. So what's going to look like is this. You're going to press down. Remember, this is under a lot of pressure, this spring. You're then going to rotate that barrel bushing. You're going to pull that plug out gently. Again, a lot of tension in there, so be careful that it doesn't go flying out. You're going to set it down. You can then remove your spring, set it down here as well. So now that we've done that, what we need to do is we need to now get the slide moved back. So the way we're going to accomplish that is we're going to take the safety off, keep that slide in place so it doesn't go sliding everywhere on you. We're going to move it back, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to line up this little notch with this pin here. This pin is going to pop out for us. So we need to line this notch up with this little area right here. Not the slide stop notch, this little tiny secondary notch. We're going to line it up, and then once we've got it lined up, we're going to roll it over. You'll notice there's a little button over here. This is the pin. We're going to press on this button, push that pin in, and then remove it from the other side. We now have the pin removed. Once we have that pin removed, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this barrel bushing. We're going to rotate it to the opposite direction. We're going to rotate it to about the 5 o'clock position. We're going to pull it out. You'll notice if you try to pull it out in any of these positions, it doesn't work. It's locked in. So you rotate it to about the 5 o'clock position and it'll pull out for you. So you're going to take that out. We're now going to bring that slide forward, and I'm going to turn it upside down so that you have a good view of what's going on. As you bring the slide forward, you'll notice you've got your slide spring guide here. You can pop that out, and then your whole slide will come off. And you'll notice that you've got your barrel in here. Now notice this little piece, this little linkage is back. If it's back, the barrel will not come out for you. It'll get stuck. It will not fit out. So what you need to do is make sure that you push that forward and then pull it out like so. Now once you've got it disassembled to here, you can do as much or as little taking apart as you want from here. You can do more or less, but this is really where you need to get to, the nuts and bolts of the cleaning. Because again, just like we did with the Glock style pistols, we want to make sure that we get these railings nice and clean, get any debris and gunk out of the area where the barrel and the spring are. So we want to get all that kind of cleaned up. Doesn't need to be anything really crazy. You'll see when it's dirty. You'll see stuff that needs to come off of there. So what we'll do though is, again, we'll make sure that we get lubrication on the areas that are points of contact where metal rubs on metal, the slide rubbing against the frame. So that's something really important for us to do there. So we're going to get all that cleaned up, brushed out, just like we did earlier. And then we, again, want to clean up inside of that slide really good. Get all that area where the barrel rests inside there. Get those points of contact again. Make sure they're lubed up so they're points of contact on other metal. We don't want too much friction with them. And then we want to clean the barrel the same way we clean the other barrel. We want to make sure that we get it really thoroughly cleaned in there. Once we've performed all those cleanings, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and reassemble. Now, to reassemble, what we're going to do is pretty much the same steps backwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the frame here. We're going to get our slide. Now there's a couple ways to do it. You can either put the slide on first and then insert the pieces, or you can insert the pieces and kind of do it all at once. My preference is to go ahead and get everything done kind of at once. So what I like to do is, again, take that barrel, put it into place here inside of the slide, and then I'm going to take my slide spring guide here, and then you'll notice it's got a little half moon shape. There's a little half moon shape on it on one end. That's the end that goes against the barrel. So when you got that against the barrel, you want to make sure that the slide spring guide is pointing towards where the slide spring is going to enter there. So you're going to rest it on the barrel, and you're going to point it towards where it's going to go here. So I'm just resting it. Oops. There we go. So I've got it resting on the barrel, pointing in the general direction. Now what I'm going to do is I like to take the frame and put it on upside down by inserting, so that just like we did on the Glock, we want to make sure that the frame lines up in there. We put it right inside. And then from here, we're going to make sure that we get it cocked back. You'll notice when I cock it back, it lines up very nicely, this little notch, with where I've got to put my pin in place here. Now one thing to be aware of, you can see some little scratches if you look closely. This is a used 1911. It was one that was donated by Linwood Gun. We thank them for that. We didn't want to scratch up a new one to show you how to clean it. But this is an area that's very common to get scratched up. So beware of that if you buy a 1911. This area probably will get scuffed up. The reason is, what you got is you got this little pin right here. And there's a little tiny pin that presses in. And that pin needs to get kind of pushed in so that you can get this pin to go in, the main pin. Now you'll notice as you do this, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I've got a nice lined up area here so that my pin will slide right into that hole. So I'm lining it up, making sure there's a nice open area there. My pin's going to slide in the hole, and then what I want to do is I want to get my pin pushed pretty much all the way in, and then you'll notice I've got a little area right on the back of the pin. There's a little tiny area on the back of the pin there that touches that little spring-loaded area, and you can push kind of up on it and then in, and then you'll have that pin in place. Now once you've got that pin in place, you're going to make sure that you get your barrel bushing back on. So again, about the 5 o'clock position, Once you got it in place, you're going to rotate it over to that 8 or 9 o'clock position. Then we're going to take our slide spring. What we're going to do with this slide spring is you're going to notice there's an open end, an end where the spring just kind of comes to an end. It doesn't really touch anything. And then we have the closed end, the end where the spring kind of touches into itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert the open end first into this tubing. So we're going to insert open end first. We're then going to take our slide spring plug. We're going to put it on so that the closed end goes inside of the plug. So we're going to put it on like so. We're going to push it down. Again, remember this is under a lot of pressure, so it really takes a little work here. You're going to push it down. You're going to rotate that barrel bushing over to the 6 o'clock position. Once you got that all done, we're going to press the trigger, and then we're going to function check and make sure everything appears to be working appropriately.